Good morning, students. For the last 2-3 weeks, I was suffering from fever, so I was not able to create any videos here on YouTube. But now I am back again. I'm just feeling good right now, so I decided to create a video on this Saturday and to upload this on the same day. Alright, so in this video, we are going to discuss what all are the important poems that you have to study for English Literature UGC-NET examination. There is nothing hidden from my side. I'm going to tell you all the important poems, all the 65 important poems that you have to study in this video. I generally do not give the explanation of these 65 poems in the study material that we provide to the students, because it is not a good idea that you give the explanation of all these poems to the student. A student must be able to analyze the poem by himself or herself, because in the examination they are not going to ask you the simple direct questions. They are going to ask you, they will give you a poem, a passage, a stanza, and they will give you the 5 questions on that particular stanza, and you have to solve that by analyzing the poems. All right, so with the help of YouTube, you can solve all these 65 poems if you are the subscriber of our study material, and of course update me on everyday basis, because that's going to help me to discuss a lot of things with you. What all are the important things that you have to study, what you have to skip, what you have to study. All right, so all these things are in the material, and in case you don't have the material, you can refer to this video, create a list of all these 65 poems, take the printouts from Google and start analyzing with the help of Google and YouTube. All right, so before beginning, I also want to share with you one of the conversation that I had with the principal of my wife, Dr. Madhvi. She's a doctor, she's a psychiatrist, and she studied from government school. Okay, so government medium schools till 12th standard. She doesn't have any resources, she never joined any coaching, and of course there was a lot of money problems in the house, because she is from a family of mason, and not so much to meet the basic expenses, basic needs of everyday life. And even though she studied hard, coming from a rural background, from a village, and she cracked NEET examination. Okay, she got government seat in MBBS. So do not feel like you do not have any resources. Resources, more than resources, willpower is the thing that you must be able to develop inside you, and the hunger to study every day, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, or whatever the hunger you have. Okay, it took her 2-3 years to crack that government job. Okay, MBBS job. Okay, now she's MD psychiatrist, and we are married, happily married. Okay, so this is the thing. When I was talking to her principal a few weeks ago, he used to tell me that there are a lot of students who never listen to the teachers. Okay, there is a good student, there is a clever student. Good students are someone who just blindly believe in the teacher and jump into the ocean. Like if a teacher will say jump into this ocean, jump into this river, a good student will never question against the teacher, and he directly jumps onto the ocean, jumps into the river. But a clever student always have some questioning in the mind. A clever student always questions, he wants confirmation. So don't be a clever student. Okay, we are into this work for last 6 years or 7 years. Don't be clever student. What I say, just blindly believe, close your eyes and jump into the water. That's the way you are going to crack this examination. Otherwise, what will happen if you become a clever student? You just go on wasting your time listening to everyone, listening to this, listening to that, studying this book, studying that book. Do not listen to the unqualified teachers, students, even your friends. Your friends are not qualified, and you are listening to them and reading books and making notes, voluminous books. It's not possible. Okay, don't be a clever student, be a good student. Okay, so be a good student. You have to follow the advice. If you follow me, because what I share it with all my heart. If you believe that, just study what I say, and I'm sure that you are going to qualify these exams. All right, so let's begin with the video. I will take you to the computer screen, and I will share with you all the 65 important poems on British literature, from where the questions came in the examination. Almost 15 to 20 questions every year they are going to ask you from British literature poems. Okay, so you have to analyze by yourself. Let's check it out. Okay, so here we have The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, Gerontion by T.S. Eliot, Ash Wednesday by T.S. Eliot. Here in this Ash Wednesday and Gerontion, you don't have to study in depth of this. Simply understand what the poet has to say in these poems. Simply understand the analysis, like if there is a line, what's the meaning of that line? That's enough. Okay, you don't have to go in the depth. You don't even have to explore the themes behind it. You don't have to explore anything behind it. Just simply underline and simply understand what the poet has to say. In Wasteland, you have to study thoroughly. Like there are the 5 parts of Wasteland, and thoroughly means like again you have to understand what the poet has to say. Just an overview of these poems will help you to get the guesswork. Okay, we cannot remember all the things in poems. We have to read the poems, understand it, and we have to revise it multiple times, 7 times, 10 times. Like they can give you a line from this Wasteland, and will ask you from which part it has come. All right, so let's move on to the next one. We have this Lucy Gray by William Wordsworth, Solitary Reaper by William Wordsworth. This is the most important one. The Rainbow by William Wordsworth. It's also again an important point. All these poems are important. I Wandered Lonely as Cloud by William Wordsworth. It's just 14 and 15 lines poem. 3 Years She Grew by William Wordsworth, The Tiger by William Blake. William Wordsworth, these poems are enough. Again, you are going to find a lot of topics that you have never studied before. Okay, the thing is you have to study these poems first, and then you can add on to this list as you look at the previous year questions and the poems that you have not covered. For example, I have not mentioned about the poems of Philip Larkin. Okay, so in the past we have seen 6 poems, the 6 titles that came from Philip Larkin. Okay, so you look at the previous year questions and you just go through the 6 poems of Philip Larkin. Okay, simply summary, brief summary is enough. Okay, you don't have to even figure out what are the literary devices, what are the rhyme scheme, nothing. You don't have to do that because they never ask in the examination. In figure of speech, that's another subject, that's another topic. Figure of speech comes under language and linguistics. So when you study literary devices, you study figure of speech. You don't have to study figure of speech here in the poems. Okay, whenever there is analysis of these poems, if the figure of speech is mentioned, just ignore that figure of speech and simply try to cover these poems. I suggest 10 poems every day you have to do. Okay, so 10 poems in 7 days, you are going to complete all these 67 or 70 poems. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. We have Paradise Lost by John Milton, Fairy Queen. Okay, so these 2 poems is something you will never be able to get the right answer in the examination. Fairy Queen, Paradise Lost is a very big poem. Simply make the notes, 1 page notes, 1.5 page notes, 2 page notes. Okay, 2 pages are maximum and that's sufficient. If the questions come from there, that's your luck. Otherwise, do not waste your time in studying Paradise Lost and Fairy Queen. Again, you're going to find a question, one question every year they're asking. Not every year, every alternate years they're asking either from Fairy Queen or from Paradise Lost. So I suggest to my students who are into my course is that do not study that Paradise Lost and Fairy Queen. So what you can do is you can make the notes, 2 pages notes from Wikipedia. Wikipedia is enough. Okay, don't go Spark Notes, Grade Saver and all those things. Wikipedia is enough. 2 pages, 3 pages, that's the maximum number of pages of notes that you can do, because there are a lot of things to study. You cannot spend your 1 week on these 2 poems. Okay, there are a lot of things to study. So these 2 poems, 2-3 pages are sufficient. Let's move on to the next one. We have On His Blindness by John Milton. Lines composed a few miles above Tinton Abbey. That's from William Wordsworth. Elegy written in country churchyard by Thomas Gray. That's also important. All these poems are important. The Flea by John Donne. Good Morrow by John Donne. Valediction. Hymn to Godfather. Sun Rising. The Relic by John Donne. Okay, so here we have around 6 poems that you have to study from John Donne. John Donne is very important. Make sure that you study John Donne, because every year they ask one question from metaphysical poets. Either you will find the question from John Donne, Andrew Marvell, William Cowper. Okay, or either you are going to find the questions from the literary movement metaphysical poets. I have created a playlist on literary movements. You can go through that literary movement playlist. Okay, so John Donne is important. Every year they are asking the question, and these 6 poems are highly most important. So go through it. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So this is what I missed. Go and Catch a Falling Star by John Donne. So we have 7 poems right now. Tiger by William Blake, Virtue by George Herbert, Pulley by George Herbert. There was a question from these two also. There were questions from all these poems. You look at the previous year questions. To His Coy Mistress by Andrew Marble, Virgins on His Being Arrived at the Age of 23, Light Shining Out of Darkness, God Made the Country, Kubla Khan, The Rime of Ancient Manner. Both are from S.T. Coleridge. Ode to the West Wind by P.B. Shelley, Ozymandias by P.B. Shelley, To Skylark by P.B. Shelley. So you are surely going to find 3 to 4 questions from romantic period. Either they can ask you question from William Wordsworth, John Donne, the pre-romantics like William Blake also, Wordsworth, Coleridge, and then the second generation romantic poets P.B. Shelley, John Keats, and then we have Lord Byron. Childe Harold's Pilgrimage is a work by Lord Byron. So you have to study that also. Romantic period, maximum 5 questions may also come. S.T. Coleridge is also there, very important. His contribution to literary criticism is also very important. Okay, so you have to study these. Ode to Grecian and Ode to Psyche, John Keats, all the odes, like 4 or 5 odes, that's important. Okay, Ode to Melancholy. Okay, so you have to study. Ode on Melancholy, Ode to Nightingale, Ode to Psyche, Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson, The Lotus Eater by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Okay, so there is a mistake in the numbering. Kindly change the numbering also. My Last Duchess by Robert Browning, Porphyria's Lover by Robert Browning, Prospice by Robert Browning. Then we have Home Thoughts from Abroad by Robert Browning. And then again we have The Last Ride Together from Robert Browning. Robert Browning is another important poet. Again, all these 60 poems are important. Okay, make sure that you study everything. Take the printouts, analyze it, that's all. Okay, next, move on to the next one. We have sonnets by Shakespeare, sonnet 1, 3, 11, 18, 29, 116 and 130. These sonnets are important. You don't have to study all the sonnets, but you have to study these sonnets. It just take 1 hour or 2 hours to complete these sonnets. Just 14 lines are there. You can simply check out the YouTube and you can find out the analysis of these poems. Stopping by Woods on Snowy Evening, The Road Not Taken, If by Rudyard Kipling, Dover Beach, Lead Kindly Light by John Henry Newman. So we have 60 poems here. Okay, so you have to study all these poems. Just take 5 to 10 minutes to complete one poem, because these poems are not so much lengthy. Like you may find 14 lines, 6 lines. For example, Lead Kindly Light by John Henry Newman, not so much big, like 14 lines. Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold, not so much big. If by Rudyard Kipling, not so much big. So the main target is 10 poems every day. Start with the small poems, because that will help you to build the confidence, and later on you can move on to the big poems like William Wordsworth's Lucy Gray, T.S. Eliot's Wasteland, God Made the Country. Okay, all those poems. So these all are the poems that you have to study for English literature UGC-NET examination. In British literature, we have the poems in American literature, we have the poems in Indian literature. Of course, in English education in India, in Indian literature, we have a lot of poems. Lakshman by Toru Dutt, the Half of My Country by Henry D'Orazio. So in every subject there are some important points that you have to study, but in British literature these are the first priority. After that you can go through other poems. Okay, you can make the list. This list goes on and on and on. The syllabus never comes to the end. Okay, so but revision is important. The more you revise, the better you get on these topics, and if luck works, you are going to find the questions. Of course, you are going to find the questions from these poems. That's what we have analyzed in the last 24 years of previous year questions. Okay, so do let me know your views in the comment section below. I will see you soon in the next video. That's it for this. Thank you so much.